Olive and Geoff's first few weeks in the village were taken up with emptying boxes, settling the two girls into their new school, and finding out all the necessary information required to live in the countryside, such as delivery days for the greengrocer and bread van, church service times, and the schedule of the local bus services to town. Of course, Geoff also had his job at the foundry, where he worked as a pattern maker. So Olive dashed here and there, making their new home a place to relax in. Relatives had been to visit in abundance, everyone wanting to know how life was treating them in the village, and Olive's two brothers had stayed a few days to help paint doors and put up shelves. During that time, the little cottage had been full of laughter, singing, and continued bustle as the two men busied themselves from morning till night. They would do anything for Olive, their most amenable sister, and both had a lot of time for their brother-in-law too. As far as they were concerned, a few days off work helping Olive and Geoff to fix up their new home was well worth it, just to see the smiles on their faces. Her three sisters had also paid a visit. Phoebe, the eldest, had been helpful and kind, bringing sweets for the children and taking care of baby Godfrey for a few hours so that Olive could continue to organise her new home. Next had come Dolly, the joker of the family, providing respite from her sister's busy day as she poured tea and told tales of the friends that Olive had left behind. The two sisters had laughed uncontrollably on many occasions and vowed to make sure that the distance in miles that now lay between them would do nothing to stop them from enjoying each other's company on a regular basis. Lastly, Olive's youngest sister Minnie had alighted from the small green bus, resplendent in her new straw hat and impractical 3-inch heels. Olive laughed inwardly as Minnie manoeuvred her way along the dusty path, all the while trying desperately to look chic. Of all her sisters, Minnie was the most difficult to get along with, and caused constant friction with her siblings. But even the 3-hour-long visit to her sister's new home, eyeing up every nook and looking for fault in every cranny, could do nothing to dampen Olive's high spirits. As she walked her sister to the bus stop, Olive took a deep breath and said thanks. Life in the village had calmed her beyond belief. The hustle and bustle of settling in had left very little time to get acquainted with the neighbours, but slowly and surely as the weeks passed, and as opportunity presented itself, Olive came to know the residents of the village. Unfortunately, she also found out their secrets. Of course, every family has secrets, but as the days, weeks and years passed by, Olive would gradually come to know every skeleton in every closet. Sometimes she dearly wished that things had remained hidden, that the occupants of the village had not openly revealed to her their sins and obsessions. Some things were best kept behind closed doors. It wasn't as if Olive actively sought to help or counsel the villagers around her. In fact, she dearly wished she could have continued her life of ignorance as far as their sordid conspiracies were concerned. It seemed that everyone knew and accepted the terrible deeds going on around them. A secret society where all were aware but nobody told. The village was shrouded in guilt, loathing and desire. As any wife would do, as each secret revealed itself, Olive shared her newfound knowledge with her husband. Geoff merely laughed. Poor Olive must be bored out here in the country, he thought. Too much fresh air is affecting her imagination. Of course, when his dear wife started to lose sleep, Geoff worried a little, but put it down to the change in environment or the time of the month. Sometimes he even blamed it on the full moon. Occasionally, he would hear Olive put on her dressing gown and creep downstairs to make a cup of tea. But Geoff had a hard day at work ahead, and the temptation of a warm bed and soft pillow were enough to ease him back into slumber. At other times he would awake to hear his wife's shallow breathing, and knew that she was lying still, eyes fixed on the ceiling, trying not to give any clues that she had been without sleep for hours. Naturally, Geoff cared, but he knew full well how people's minds could play tricks on them. Geoff was certain that Olive would eventually settle down to her new life and stop fretting over the things she thought she'd witnessed. After all, he pondered, some of the things she had told him were almost impossible to believe. It was almost as if Olive were reliving some kind of nightmare from her childhood. It would pass, and soon she would come to her senses, he thought. But there lay the problem. You see, the things that Olive saw and heard were all too real.